Okay, well this is Sunday the 5th of December 2004. We're talking to Dad, Arthur Henry Jephcott, about his life story. We're here at Ditchling, Quilters Green in Fordham. Now Dad, last time we left off the film, you were telling us how you'd finished your service overseas, you came back, you got married, and then to your surprise and irritation you were posted again to Germany. And you took the boat across to Germany and ended up getting you billeted in Westphalia. Now you were going to tell us a little bit about getting a pass.
Yeah.
To go and find some of the family, which was particularly difficult. So can you pick up the story from there?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit.
Well, don't you want me to tell you about going to Grandma's?
Yes, please, yes.
Yes, right.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I'll pick it up where I can, just let me have a little thing. Right. Well, we can say that on my return from India, overseas service, I was given leave, a long period of leave. Am I not on?
Yes, you are now, yeah. Yeah, we're filming now.
A long period of leave, and was posted to a camp in Thirsk, and in that area we were isolated from the conscripts that were doing their national service. I think it was a case that we were too rough for them, the overseas chaps who were quite seasoned and quite awkward at times. But anyway, I enjoyed my leave, and then I enjoyed my leave, and then whilst I was at Thirsk, I decided to get married, which I did very happily, but had great difficulty in getting permission for leave, for which they grudgingly granted me 9 days for to get married. That completed, and on my return I was then posted to Germany and sailed from Dover to Calais, hence by train from there to Iserlohn in the, what district was that now? I've forgotten the district, but it was quite a distance down in Germany, and finished up at it was Wuppertal Barracks, doing signal duty with 4 corps. Now at that time it was prohibited for troops to fraternise with the Germans and vice versa, and I had been asked by the family in general to try and contact Mary's, my wife, her family's grandparents in Hamburg, which I endeavoured to do and tried hard, but was continually being refused. I think again, for the second time in my army life, I was queried in my background, because having married a young lady with her maiden name as Voss, it no doubt looked a bit suspicious in this country. But I continued to endeavour to obtain this leave, and it seemed a hopeless case. No one wanted to know anything about it. I was writing to company office, to the adjutant, and he wasn't concerned a bit. Eventually, it was getting near the time, very near the time, for my demob and the posting back to this country. So I wrote to the commanding officer of the unit. It got on, it went on and on and on until there were only oh yes, I think from memory 5 or 6 days left before we were sent back, demobbed and returned to this country. But I was on signal office duty, one tea time, and I got a call to say report to company office, which I did, and I was seen by the commanding officer, who questioned me on my request to get opportunity to visit grandparents with my wife, and I was granted there and then can't quite remember if it was 3 or 4 days to proceed to Hamburg, where most of the grandparents and family lived. But I'd got to make my own way there and my own way back, and was told if I didn't get back to hand my kit in and all the necessary arrangements for demob, I would be put on a charge. Immediately I got round to the Q stores and talked to one of the chaps there, and I got 1 or 2 things given to me to take along, and I went into the mess to finish my tea and managed to get some bread, white bread, tea, well, rations they were, to take with me. Tea, sugar, I can't remember if I had milk, must have done, I think. And thought, right, now I've got to get transport. So I went back to the signal office at 4 Corps headquarters and waited there for the DRLS, which was the dispatch rider section, and they were running on jeeps, with jeeps, not motorcycles. When they came in, this would be something like 11, 12 o'clock at night. They loaded up, they handed in their packages, collected all the packages from the unit, and I approached them and said, could they help me to do this journey? And they said they couldn't do it, but they could take me to Bielefeld, which is fairly close to Hamburg. When I got there, it was, well, in the middle of the night, and I had to report to the DRO, who attended to all the transport of the boys. I don't know how to say that. Members of the forces. And I was introduced to a captain, a lady captain, and she was extremely helpful. She listened to all I had to say, and she said, now I am going to give you a pass, and you're to be treated on any special trains that are going. And I'll give you a letter for the DRO at Hamburg to say that you've got to be given transport back. Anyway, off I went, and special train came in, luckily, on which I clambered and arrived safely at Hamburg. I suppose that was in the middle of the night, more or less. Well, it was dark, I know that. And I hadn't got a clue where I was going, just an address, but I had been given by some friends I knew in Hamburg a letter written in German language asking anyone to direct me to Große at Theaterstrasse, just where the grandma of the family lived. And I went up to two German policemen, very smart chaps, and just proffered this note, and they looked at it and they chatted away to themselves, and there's me, every time I spoke to them I was trying to make some sign to make them understand, when one of them in perfect English said to me, yes, now you'll proceed down through the station here and you will come to, I've forgotten how he addressed it, but he meant the main road, in which you will find, now I think in your country you call them tram cars. He said you'll catch a tram car there and talk to the conductor. I'll take you, I'll take you. So he left his pal and took me down through the station, got me on a tram, jabbered away to the conductor, who then took charge of me, and I got to eventually Große Theaterstrasse. And I found that Grandma's accommodation, the front of it was in Große Theaterstrasse. But the front door, the actual front door to the flats, I assume the shopkeepers lived in these flats, was number 6, Colonnada, which was the road behind Grosse Theaterstrasse. And I went there, and it was the first time I ever came across the door where you press a button, the door opened. I said, but I went in there, pitch black, absolutely pitch black. And I said, but I felt a staircase, and started to climb up when I heard chains up on the landing further up being rattled, and then a voice, obviously calling in German, "Wer ist that?" And I called out, "Geoffrey," and then I realised that no one knew me as Geoffrey, and I said, "I'm a British soldier and I'm Mary Voss's husband." "Oh, come up," back into English, because she could speak English well, as you know very well.
This was Dorothea?
Yes, this was Auntie Dolly.
Yeah. Oh, Auntie Dolly?
Yes. And there was this lady's head stuck out the door. "Oh, British soldaten, British soldaten." And apparently she thought Mary had married a Pole. And Germans were dead scared of the Poles because they were being treated rough by them. But when she saw I was a British soldaten, she was so pleased. I said, and then I said she was straight on the telephone, phoning different people. And before long, who should turn up would be
Erica?
Grandad.
Yeah.
What's her name, the daughter?
Well, we have Margot.
Margot. And, oh, I'm sorry.
Erica. There's Dolly's husband was Albert.
Yeah, Erica came. But I've told you wrong. It wasn't Auntie Dolly that opened the door, it was Auntie Dolly's mother that opened the door, great-grandma.
Dorothea Voss.
Yes. Well, I assume that is the name.
Yeah. Yes.
And she was the one. And of course Auntie Dolly turned up as well. And talk all night. And I handed over these rations that I'd got, which they were delighted with. Quite a lot of talk, I can remember some of it, but I don't think we've got time for this now, all these things. But it meant that that following morning, I'd got to get back to, and time was very short. They put me under a couple of duvets on the couch to have a couple of hours sleep, and we got up early in the morning, and Auntie Dolly, Uncle Albert, and the two girls went to the station. I reported to the movement officer, got my pass, and I'd got a pass for a special duty train for officers only, but I was put on that. Stood on the station for a little time we'd got to spare, and then I kissed them all goodbye, the girls, clambered on my train. Chappie sitting in the train looked at me and looked at Erica and my sister, Margot. He said, "You lucky blighter." So he soon. But it transpired from that, by kissing the girls, they nearly got lynched. Because the Germans on the station objected to them kissing a British soldier. But they got away with it, but it was a bit difficult apparently for them. And anyway, I eventually got back to Iserlohn. And I got back to Iserlohn, it would be about 9 o'clock, or a bit later than that in the day. And all my friends had got their kit laid out on the square, and they were being inspected and checked and all sorts of things, and I was told to get my gear as quickly as possible and get it chucked down, which I did. And from there we ultimately got onto trains back to
Was it Calais?
Calais. All our passes checked. I can't quite remember the procedure there. But over to Dover, and we were inspected to see if we got anything we shouldn't have. And quite amusing. One of the customs, as we went by, I heard him say, "What the hell have you got there? How did you get that?" So we turned around and looked, and there were 3 blokes, 2 of them helping another bloke to carry a washing machine.
Really?
They let them go, and we were entrained at Dover. And went to Thirsk. That's right, went to Thirsk. And we were a bit browned off with this, and we were a Barbary lot. And the sergeant there, and mind you, we thought we'd finished with the army, but they could have put us on a charge and sent us back. I didn't know that until I got to Olympia to get my suit and shoes and hat and things. But anyway, we got to Thirsk, got out on the platform, and we started to take the mickey out of the sergeant in charge. He was a sergeant major, yes. And he said, "All right, you chaps, if that's the way you want to be, you won't get home today." That was it. He said, because it was intended to take you back to headquarters, barracks, get your pay books and your pay and your ration money and everything, and be inspected and away. And once you're away, you please yourself, you can catch any train, but if you want to mess about, he'd got us by the short and curly, you see. So anyway, we went to barracks. That was in the morning. And we got our gear, went to the queue. Anyone that wanted a decent hat or anything like that, because we were a bit scruff order. This was replaced to make us look respectable. And merrily, well, I got on a train with 1 or 2 others and sailed back to Paddington. That's it, Paddington Station. I'm sorry, I've missed a bit out there. we were picked up at Paddington Station by trucks and taken to a barracks in Marylebone, where we were given a meal. After details being taken of us, we again got into trucks according to the districts in which we lived. And anyway, I was in a truck and taken up the Edgware Road and dropped Tottenham Court Road, I beg your pardon, Tottenham Court Road, and dropped at Praed Street, where Paddington Station was. And I thought I'd better, so I was so pleased, and this was the day of the celebrations for the D-Day lark, you know, and everyone was fireworks and bonfires and goodness. I thought, well, I must phone Mary. Went to the post office there, and there were 2 telephone boxes. Went to the first one, put the tuppence in, and I couldn't get through. I couldn't get through. So then I looked at the other one, and I walked across to that, put my money in. I'd lost my money in the first one. I put my tuppence in this one, the same thing. I couldn't get any reply at all. So I thought to myself, I don't know, I put my fingers up the coin chute, eject coins, and felt a bit of cloth up there, which I pulled out. A shower of pennies came out, coins, which I hesitated at first. I was worried that I might get pinched, you know, and I didn't want that. And anyway, I did. I picked all these pennies up and I thought, bugger this, if that one's like that, perhaps the other one is, which it was. I was loaded up with coppers. So then I tried to get through and couldn't get any answer from Mary's home. So, because they didn't know I was coming home, you see. It was a surprise to them. So anyway, I made myself, caught a train to Hammersmith. From Hammersmith, changed trains, went to Harrow, and not one person spoke to me. It was obvious I'd come from abroad, but not one person spoke to me. And the streets, the main streets, seemed deserted, while everyone was in fields and wherever they could go to celebrate. Anyway, got to Harrow Station. I came out of Harrow Station, through the market, and into East Coast Avenue, where I lived. Absolutely deserted, except for 2 people right down the far end at their garden gates. One lady on one side of the road and another lady on that side of the road. A few kids suddenly appeared. Oh, had I killed many people?
How did they know you were a soldier?
I was in uniform.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Oh yes, in uniform. And I didn't put my bush hat on though. I was a bit shy. I thought people might think I'm being a bit, but I did afterwards. Anyway, I spoke to them and then I started to walk down. I could see the lady on that side looking. She was talking to my mother across the road. And she looked again, she looked a couple of times. And then to Mum, she said, made Mum understand to look up the road, which she did. And Mum walked with a stick then. The stick went one way and Mum went the other way. Came up the road. She was overwhelmed, you know. And anyway, I got home. They had been expecting me at some time, near, because my chair was decorated and the welcome sign was up in the sitting room. But it was Mum was the only one in the house. And Nancy, my sister, and brother-in-law, Harry, were out under the train arches, bridges, standing around the bonfires and the fireworks being let off. And I stood there just watching, and no one, Nancy and Harry didn't spot me, but someone spotted me and recognised me and went and tapped Nancy on the shoulder. And poor old Nancy, it's the only time I've ever known Nancy cry over her brother. And of course, we came home, and then late in the evening I managed to phone and get through to Mary's house. But of course I hadn't got any transport and I couldn't get to her then. But Dad answered the phone and we had a chat. I said, I'll come in the morning as early as I can. He said, you do that, Geoffrey. And I could hardly sleep that night. But in the morning I poshed up. I put my equipment on, uniform equipment that you wore in India, short spats and putties and things like that. Made myself look as smart as I could. I think I was a credit. And off I went to Kingsbury, Grove Park. Dad came to the door and he looked at me, and again he said, well, you look a man, Geoffrey. And he went back and he said, come in. So I went in to the hall and he called Mary. He said, here she comes. And she came round the corner. She was a bit overwhelmed. She knew I was coming. And he said, go on, the pair of you go in there, into the best room.
Parlour.
Parlour, that's the word I was trying to think. And things developed from there. And my own home, it really wasn't my home because Harry had taken over and my sister there and a great friend was there, was living there. In fact, I slept on the floor the first night because there wasn't room. But of course, as soon as I got to Mary's home, Dad said, well, you come and stay here. And really it was, as other things happened, I decided to make that my home, which I did simply because I'd brought one or two things home with me, and I'd bought bolt of material with me for Mary to make a dress, and some doilies and tableware for Nancy, which was wrong. She wanted the material for the dress, and quite unpleasant, really. You know, I'd only been back a few hours and I was having a bloody barney. More, not as bad as that, but I could have gone that way. And in the end I got fed up with this, so I cut the blinking bolt of material in half. Of course it wasted it. And that was what decided me that I could see. I did spend some time at home, but I was never comfortable. For instance, you could never get the bathroom to yourself. And Harry used to do photography, and I was going out and I wanted to have a bath one day, and he was in the bathroom developing in the hand basin, and he knew that I wanted a bath. He didn't shift, so I thought, fair enough, there goes the army. I went straight in the bathroom, turned the taps on, stripped off and clambered into the bath. Harry picked his stuff up and shot out the door and left me to get on with it, which I did. Ultimately, he told Nancy that he thought I was the most uninhibited chap he'd ever come across, and told her that he didn't understand the army, you know. And anyway, things went on from there, and I enjoyed my leave, and I think I'd not had one leave abroad, but such called a leave. So I thought, I'm going to have every day of my leave. Enjoy it. And I've got a shrewd idea that father-in-law thought Mary had picked the wrong one and a lazy blighter. But I used to do painting and different things and making ships and that. But I never realised for some time that eventually I come to the end of my leave, which was on a Friday. Friday came round, and down to the unemployment exchange, and saw the manager there, who was very, very friendly to me, and asked me what he could do for me. I said, well, a job. He said, oh yes, I know that, you know. We had a chat, and I said, well, I would like to get a job in Duples, the coach builders. I said, I know the firm because pre-war they used to deal with my company, and they used to finance the company, and I used to visit here. So he said, well, I haven't got any jobs registered there. Well, what I will do, he said, I'll give you a card and you can go along and see them. See them tomorrow. I said, what, Saturday? He said, oh yes, we're open Saturday. They were in those days. And so I went off, and on the Saturday I went to see Duples, and it was all strange to me, the way that things had changed slightly. Anyway, in Duples there were like two companies. They were the same company, but the managing director had built within the factory a tool room, and that was his pet baby, the tool room. And the other was the coach building. And the people in the coach building side used to refer to the tool room as the company the other side of the wall. And candidly, when I took up a job there, I really thought that I was in the company the other side of the wall. I didn't realise then even that it was the same company. Anyway, I went and I was interviewed by a very dark-chinned chap, blue-chinned chap, and sleek black hair. And I went into his office and I looked at him and I thought, oh, he's an old tarty, you know. And anyway, it was on top, the air raid shelter was right along the factory wall, and on the top was the tool room. And there was an office there, his office, and the general office with 3 girls in it. And then along the top there was another office with a second in command in that, 1 girl, his assistant, working with him. Anyway, I saw this dark-haired fellow, and he told me, he said, you know, you chaps up there are no use to industry. You know, you're not trained for it. I thought, you bastard, you know. I could have really hit him when he said that. And I'm looking up at a chart on the wall. And he said, oh, I'm sorry old chap, but there it is. Very sharp he was. And he said, do you understand that chart? So I said, well, yes. He said, do you know what it is? I said, yes. It's for batch working, wasn't it? He said, yes. So you could handle it? Oh, you know, words like that. And I said, well, if I knew what the product was. Yes. So sort of making parts for coaches when necessary. We've got a tool room here. I didn't really know what a bloody tool room was. And anyway, he said, well, I want an assistant, he said, and I couldn't pay you much, but if you'd like the job, it's up to you. So I said, yes, I said, I'd take it, you know, thinking any job, get into a job.
Get a start.
That's what I wanted. I was eager to get a job. I sincerely was. So he said, well, I can only give you £4 a week. And I think the going rate at the time was about £9, you know. I thought, well, wicked. I said, no. I said, I can't take the job at that rate. He said, well, I'm sorry, old chap. There it is. So I went home. I was disappointed. And Dad looked at me and he said, you really wanted that job, didn't you, Jeff? He called me Jeffrey. So I said, yes, I did. I really wanted it. Well, you go back and get it. Don't worry about your housekeeping money and things like that. You've got a home here. So back to Duples I went, saw Mr. Walker, and he gave me the job. So, is this all right, what He gave me the job. And I was staked out, if I can use that word, not in his office, but in the office at the other end of the tool room.
Yeah.
And they used to play me out. There was a machine outside, a bending machine, and they used to put grease on the handle, doorknob and things like that. Play me out, some of these blooming engineers. Anyway, I got to know everyone. And I'd only been there less than 2 weeks. No, it was 2 weeks, that's right. 2 weeks I'd been there. And I'd got some electrical goods whilst I was in Germany on the black market.
Mm.
Lighting equipment. And I brought it home with me. It was black market. And Tommy Waite was the chap I used to operate with, you know, on the radios. And we used to get about together in Germany. And we both got some of this stuff. Anyway, the phone rang this Sunday, and it was him. He says, I believe you went and got some spare parts for that equipment we got. I said, yes. He said, where did you get it? Because I want some, I don't know where to go. So I said, well, go to Phillips at Charing Cross Road, you know, told him where to go. We had a little chat, and that was that. On the Monday, I'm sitting down at my desk, and old Walker, the manager that I saw, walked through the office. Turned out he was going to the P corner actually, but he glowered at me, you know, and I thought, hello, what have I done? Anyway, when he came back, he stopped. He said, do you know anyone the name of Waite? I said, yes. I said, I was talking to him on the phone yesterday. Yes, I know. He said, he's my son-in-law. He said, when I came down for my afternoon's rest to my tea, there I saw your name on my telephone table. I was made up with him then. Mm. And Terry Waite, not Terry, Tommy Waite, he wasn't the bloke that was in prison, you know, oh. Terry Waite. Anyway, that made it with Mr. Walker. He took to me and back to my office I went. Yes, because I happened to be in the drawing office when he came by. Mm. That was it. I wondered how I got. And I went back to my office and sat down, and I was sorting this material out, getting it in numerical order and goodness knows what, a stack of it. Mm. I did it. Anyway, door opened and shut. I didn't look round. A squeaky voice said, hello, who are you? I looked round and a bloke standing there in a smart grey suit, and a short little bloke. But of course, being in the army days, I stood up and addressed him as Sir. He said, you been in the army? I said, yes. He said, when did you come out of the army? So I told him. He asked me a couple of questions. He said, and you've taken this job? How much are they paying you? What was it, £4 a week? I think it was £2 a week, £4 a week. Yeah, it was £4 a week. I said, £4 a week. You should never have taken the job, he said. I said, yes sir, 3 bags full. So he buzzed off. Wasn't long before I was sent for by Walker. So I went down to Walker's office. He said, "Mr. Watts, just been talking to me about you. He's our managing director." He said, "and he's given you £2 increase." I thought, blimey. He said, "and I'm giving you £1 as well." So I thought, oh, I'm in. So I went back to my job, and it transpired that this next in command, chappie, was quite pleasant to me, very good. Hated the sight of Mr. Walker. And a couple of days later he said to me, you know, he said, "I've had words with Walker." He said, "I'm always round with him." He said, "No, I'm not having that." He said, "I'm fed up," you know, told me he's really fed up with it. And off he went out the office. Came back later on. "There I," he said, "I've given my notice in." He said, "and I shall be leaving. I'm not standing any more of that." And he said, "He's going to offer you the job." I said, "Me?" I said, "I don't know anything about your job." He said, "You can learn though, can't you?" He said, "Well, you'll be in the stew." He said, "but you accept it. You can learn." So I got his job. And I became in charge as he was. And there's a lot more to my history there, but by getting in touch with Duples and meeting Jack Walker, he had got a little foundry of his own out towards Edgware, and he was going to leave eventually, and at that time they were going to open up a personnel department, and by then I was doing a magazine for the company and all that. Well, Mary was, and helped me a lot, she did, your mum. She really got me on my feet. And immaculate, this work that she did, and the printer said, "I've never seen such a copy." And they made Jack Walker acting personnel manager. He hadn't got a clue. Hadn't got a clue. But I walked into his office one day, and he's sitting there with his feet up on the drawer, open drawer at his desk. And I said, I said, I'd like this job. Oh, he said he was fed up with the job. You know, he didn't understand anything about it. But I said, I'd give my eyes for that. He said, "Would you?" I said, "Yes, I would." "I'll recommend you," he said. Personnel manager. Well, that was stupid, because it was a special personnel manager being brought in to break the trade unions. And I thought, that's stupid, no one's going to put a bloke like me in personnel. And anyway, he did recommend me, and a chap named Big took over. And he sent for me. And I went into his office to see him, and he knew of me through the magazine he'd written, and had asked around about me. I'm not carrying on too much, am I?
No.
He'd found out about me, and by then I'd been put. Oh, the tool room had been closed down, so Jack Walker became a surplus there. But whilst he was waiting to take up his own business, they put him in personnel department, so he got there. Anyway, he recommended me. And old Mr. Big's secretary was a girl I knew very well, very well indeed. She was his assistant, so his secretary. So anyway, he decided, well, I've never been interviewed like it in all my life. Blimey, he turned me inside out within 10 minutes. Learned a lot from him. Wizard. Anyway, he'd asked for me. This girl, his secretary, Mr. Big Secretary, told me, he's asked Mr. Barton for you. That was my boss. Nasty little bit of shit he was. But I had been trained to do every job in the accounts department. So if anyone was out, I could do the pay, I could do anything, you see. And apparently he had said to Mr. Big, I'm sorry, you can't have him. You can't have him, he's too useful to me. So Mr. Big said, well, I want him, but I can't, he said, you can't have him. So a little time went on. I was told the result by this girl, you know, that old Barton wouldn't let me go. So I took a chance. I went up to de Havilland's and got a job, and did I mind if they sent for a reference? I said, no, I don't mind in the least. And anyway, I got a job with them. Back to work I went. And next I knew, Big walked into Barton and said, now, what about Jephcott? I want him. And Barton said, you can't have him. He said, if I can't have him, you can't. Chucked a request for a reference. Yeah. He says, he's got a job at de Havilland's and I want him. Jephcott in personnel department. And there Mr. Big took to me so much. He said, you're going to do every job in this department, no matter what it is. You're going to know every job in this department.
And so when was this? What year would this have been then?
In the 50s, about 52.
Really? Yeah.
And was it 52? A little earlier than that.
And where were you living then?
With Mary's home.
So you're still, still living with your in-laws?
Yes. I had the odd few days at home, you know. Anyway, I had to go on the printing machine and the letters and everything. A thorough training he gave me, he really did. He said, right, now, I'm going to send you to Morley College for 12 months. That was a business college. So I went there and did quite well. And then he got hold of me and said, right, now, done my bit, you had your time off to do your study. He said, you've got another 2 years to do. At the Polytechnic, Regent Polytechnic. He said, but you do it in your own time, which I did. And that was 2 years, of course. But I had to do it in my own time in the evenings, you know. And I did all right there, and He got me into personnel management. They turned me down at first, but he was somewhere up in, he was something special. Everything he did, he was in the know. You know, whatever he said. Anyway, special branch. He made me a member, not of special branch, but contact to special branch. And what it boiled down to was that if I had a chappie in for a job,
It was a bit dodgy.
that was a bit dodgy, I'd only got to phone up a number and
Give his name.
give his name and his date of birth, and they would tell me whether he was red, scarlet, pink,
Or whatever colour.
or whatever, or a traveller. Okay. Anyway, that's how I got on, and it was the making of me.
Well, we're going to have to finish it there, Dad, because we're at the end of the film, so we'll take a break there.